if you never get exposed to one, then how do you know that you don't love it, you know? So as an associate, when you're just starting out, you should ask for all kinds of tax work so you can have a little bit of everything and find what you love, you know?
Yeah, you mentioned that you work on 1040s and also like business 1120, 1120s. So I'm just curious, what you think about the trending that a lot of firms they just want staff to focus on one specific type of return only. For example, do we have firm just like, hey, you're going to work on 1040s only. So this group of staffs would never work on business entities at all. We have group of staff just work on like 1120s S or 1065 flow through only, never work on 1040s or like corporations. So what do you think about keeping staff to specialize in one area only instead of working in like in general area for all different type of return?
I really like for my staff to have experience with all different types of returns. I mean, you may end up with a favorite that you enjoy. You know, we may have somebody that just really loves 1040s. So when we have a really high net worth client that needs a lot of complex things, like we know that that person enjoys 1040s. So we would try to give him or her more of those. But I definitely think as a tax person, you have to know all the types of returns. It's kind of interesting because we are what I would consider a big firm, but we have a small office and we kind of serve on the Gulf Coast, a very niche area. It's a lot of small business, it's a lot of high net worth, but you have to be a generalist. Like, I have to be able to talk to my doctors. I have to be able to talk to my plumbers. I have to be able to talk to everybody. So I think that when you get a good base of every kind of return and learn every kind of return, it just makes you better when you're in front of clients. You know, if you were only working on 1040s and then you meet a client at the pickleball courts, which I love to do, and they say, "Oh, I've got a partnership," and they ask you a question about guaranteed payments or capital or something like that. I mean, you're a CPA, you're in tax, and all you ever do is work on 1040s. How can you help somebody just in that instance to show them that you know what you're talking about? Because you can get clients that way, right? Like if you just meet somebody in a hobby or something you enjoy and you say, "Oh, well, you need to make sure you're doing this or that. You should come see me," you know? And so it just gives you a much better base. And you can definitely pick something that you enjoy the most at some point. But for people starting out in the tax department, I just feel like it's a disservice if they don't get to work on every single type of return. I mean, even trust and estates, you know, I worked on those as an associate. I don't love to do them. The other tax partner in my office, he loves to work on trust and estate. So he does all the trust and estate work, you know. And so I don't ever have to do it anymore, but I do know at least what a 1041 is and how it works. And, you know, I can talk to somebody about it and I can get clients, you know.
Yeah, wow. Talking about trust and estate. I think I had one or few returns on that, and I was so miserable on those returns. But at least I had experience to work on those
Right.
returns. I recognized the template, the form, and everything, how the number's supposed to be. But I was like, don't ever give me that if I don't have to.
Right, right. So that would be like you would tell your partner that you don't enjoy that or, you know, and then we would try not to assign you any of those.
Yeah, something
and,
like
and
that.
and the trust and estate is becoming such a niche area that I do feel like a lot of firms are having a department do that. But hey, if you never get exposed to one, then how do you know that you don't love it, you know? So as an associate, when you're just starting out, you should ask for all kinds of tax work so you can have a little bit of everything and find what you love, you know.
That's true. That's really true.
If
That's a
if
good
you're
tip.
going to work and grind through tax season just because of the work compression, you need to definitely be doing something that you love.
That's true. Yeah, because working so many hours, so stressed, you can be so stressed, and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing with 60 to 65 hours here per week during busy season with the work that you don't like? Um,
Yes, for sure.
yeah.
You definitely have to find, and you definitely need to have a purpose. I mean, I feel like that our firm is really good about letting the partners, you know, kind of have their own purpose. You know, I feel like my purpose is to give back to the small community and the small business and the people in our area. So I like to help people. And try to share expertise and make their business better. So when I sit down every day, I remember my purpose. I'm not here to bill hours. I'm not here to climb the corporate ladder. If that's your goals, that's fine. But I just feel like for me personally, I like to sit down every day and say, how can I help my community? And I can do that by helping small business, helping them make them profitable. So you just kind of have to find your purpose, and it may be an estate and trust. I mean, maybe you love that. So you just have to kind of find your purpose and your niche, and you have to be exposed to everything first, though.
I absolutely agree with you about that. So you stay with I believe three firms, but they merge in one firm now. So you move up in your career ladder. I'm just curious, in your career, when you move up into different positions, what are the main challenge that you had in the past?
I think that, I started at O'Sullivan Creel and I really loved it there, but my husband got a job in Panama City. And so we moved over, and then I worked for a small firm, Jinks and Moody. It had two partners and they were great. I asked them in the interview if I had to wear pantyhose and they said no. They at the end of my interview, they's like, "Do you have any questions?" And I was like, "Do you make your employees wear pantyhose?" And both of the two gentlemen looked at me and they were like, "No." And I was like, "I am hired." But anyway, that was back in 2005. So Russell and Jay hired me from O'Sullivan Creel. You had mentioned all of us ended up merging in with Warren Averett. So I do get to still work with the partners that hired me, which I think is pretty cool. Some of them, I mean, well, one of them especially hired me right out of college, and got to see me, progress, and we ended up being partners together in Warren Averett. So that was fun. But I will say, I actually made partner when I was 29. Now, I was with a small firm, so that's a little bit different. But I think that what I did was I just made myself valuable to them. Like, they didn't want me to go anywhere else. They said, Mindy's doing great. She's building her own book of business. She's helping us so much. We don't want her to leave. So we're going to offer her to be a shareholder in the firm. So I had a goal to do it by the time I was 30. So I got it when I was 29. So I'm very blessed to have them, recognize in me that I could help their firm, and, I could be a partner and I could grow with them. And, we did great, and we got to the point where we needed help. We were only doing tax, and we were actually referring all of our audit work to O'Sullivan Creel because that was my previous employer and I had a relationship with them, and they merged in with Warren Averett. So a couple years later, they called us and they said, "Why don't y'all just merge in? I mean, y'all are giving all your work to us anyway," because we just didn't have the capacity. We had nobody that was doing campus recruiting. We had nobody that was running, the estate and trust department. We didn't have any third party administrators for 401ks. And so that's why we decided to merge in with Warren Averett, which has been awesome. It's a great firm, and they helped us merge in seamlessly, really. And when Hurricane Michael hit in 2018, we merged in 2016. When Hurricane Michael hit in 2018, we were so thankful that we had Warren Averett behind us because we could work immediately. We didn't have power or internet at our office for over a month in Panama City, but because of their technology, we could just take our laptops to one of our other offices and work. We could work in a hotel, and this is all before COVID, so it was a little bit unique, but I mean, the infrastructure that they provided for us, it was just amazing. And so we were like, we think that that's why it was just meant to be for us to merge in with them. So I mean, we couldn't have done it without them, honestly. They sent a couple crews down to Panama City to try to help the partners, the employees, just clean up their yards because it was a total wreck. It was category 5. So the whole town was a disaster. So we couldn't have made it through that without them. And so I think it was meant to be for us to merge in with them. We went from a small firm to a big firm, so there's definitely some challenges, but it's been great.
Wow. So with that challenge, it also comes with opportunity for tax, right? Because you will have to do a lot of taxes related to that hurricane. So I'm just curious, what do you see the opportunity in that situation?
So I've kind of developed a little bit of a niche in natural disasters, and it's not really very fun, I would say, because you're always dealing with people that have insurance claims and they've lost things. They're building, their house was destroyed, they've had a casualty. But because we had to go through all that, I really just want to pay it forward to my colleagues and to people that have, been through it. Hurricane Helene hit North Carolina really bad last year. And so I had a couple people reach out. I did a podcast or a CPE for the North Carolina Society so that I could just share my knowledge with them about how to go through the insurance claim process, how to calculate the casualty losses on the tax returns. It's not really a fun thing, but I do just want to pay it forward because we had to learn so much. I mean, we had some clients that did not have wind coverage. So now when I meet with my clients, the first thing I say is, have you checked your insurance to make sure you have wind coverage? I mean, most people don't even think about that because we had so many clients whose insurance agent did not had removed wind coverage, their whole building was destroyed and they had no insurance, even though they thought they did. So just little things like that I picked up along the way. I try to share it with other colleagues in the state and help other CPAs, like just to know what to look for and how to calculate. And if, the actual casualty calculations are really complicated. So, we go through, does the person have basis? Did they have insurance? Did they have a deductible? Is the hurricane qualified? There's so much that goes into that, but it's kind of like a little niche area. And I've definitely spent a good bit of time trying to pay that forward. We luckily did not have any hurricanes this year, or not any major hurricanes that made landfall in the U.S. So this year we actually had a tax deadline in Florida. For the last 4 years, we have not had an October 15th tax deadline because of all the hurricanes.
So now, because of having no hurricane, does that mean that you have less clients?
No, I mean, I don't actually get paid. I mean, obviously, my clients that we prepare the tax returns for that had a casualty for Hurricane Michael, their fees were more that year because we had to do all the calculations. But I don't really take clients that just need calculations. It's more of a just, I want to share my knowledge with you and pay it forward. So my firm has allowed me to spend time with and do CPEs just to try to help people because it's just a sad situation. When you've been devastated by a hurricane, you need people that are going to help, you know.
Yeah, it's really sad to be in that situation. But I'm glad, I'm very glad that you're able to pay forward to help people how to do calculate and then to do it right, or like have the right insurance to cover when it happens as well. So that's
Yes, yes. Whenever you have a disaster, you really want to get money back in your pocket. And because of the casualty losses that the tax code allows, there's a way to do that. So you just have to, but I mean, most practitioners just don't deal with it very often because sometimes we only have catastrophic hurricanes every few years, or we just had a big cluster of them in the last, 5 or 6 years. So a lot of people are having to learn out of the blue how to do those calculations, and it's very hard. I mean, when we first got hit, we spent so many hours like researching and reaching out to anyone. We actually reached out to some people that went through Hurricane Katrina. There's a group of CPAs in Louisiana that have went through Katrina, so we reached out to them and said, "Hey, what do we do? How do we help our clients? How can we make a difference to them in their lives? How can we help them?" And so they were very helpful, and they paid it forward from Katrina. So I'm trying to pay it forward from Hurricane Michael.
Isn't that amazing the connection we have between CPAs? Like you can
Oh yeah.
connect with any CPAs from anywhere in US and then ask for help or like share the knowledge or like, oh, hey, you work on this one before.
Yes.
Can you help me?
Yes, and for the most part, everybody's really generous with their time. I mean, you forget that the P in CPA is certified public accountant, so we're here to serve the public, and so you can do that in a lot of ways. But one of the ways that I've been able to do that is through helping people get through natural disasters. So
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that, Mindy. Your work, your help is truly appreciated. You just mentioned that you became a partner when you were 29. That's pretty fast for and to be a partner at that young age. So when you move up that fast, do you feel like there's something that you wish that you could slow down and you can pick up at the slowest, at the slower timeline instead of moving up so fast?
I think that because I had such good mentors and the two partners that were there, that I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I learned so much from them, but I do think that it's important to build your book of business. I know that's scary sometimes for young people, especially. You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be known in your firm as an entrepreneur. So I'd say a lot to my young people, if you're talking to someone, like use that word, say, well, I'm an entrepreneur, so I want to learn that, like use that word because I think it helps. Well, it makes the partners realize that you're a go-getter and you want to build something. Like you want to build your own book of business. You want to take over, books of business. As people start to retire, they're going to need somebody to pass their book of business to. And if you are known as an entrepreneur and a go getter, then you're more likely to get assigned that work, And so I mentioned something earlier about hobbies and playing pickleball, which I love to do. My husband and I are really active in pickleball. But if you're at the courts and you make friends, I mean, that's how you build your book of business. Like you may not be thinking about work while you're at pickleball, but you may have a friend that says, "Oh, I've got a tax oh, you're a tax accountant. I've got a tax problem." And then you can just say, "Oh, well, what's up?" And then just try to help them naturally and then say, "Why don't you come see me? Let's make an appointment." It comes about naturally, especially in tax, because there's like everybody has to file a tax return, right? So everybody's a potential client. Obviously, you would need to make sure they're a good fit for your firm, but it still lends itself to being easy to build your book of business. Because if you, as a young person, I mean, get your family friends, like if you have, my brother had a friend that was an NBA basketball referee and he needed a tax person. And so one of my first clients, my brother said, "Hey, my sister's a CPA now." Now, I don't know if I was qualified to take it at the time, but I definitely got some help along the way. But I took him on as a client, and I had people in the firm that helped me. Then my mentors helped me because there's a lot of states. I don't know if you've ever done a professional athlete, but there's a lot of states that are required when they're going to different states to play sports and stuff. So anyway, it's like I probably wasn't qualified to even take on the work, but I did, and my firm helped me grow. They helped me understand what I was doing, and so as long as you have people that you work for that are your mentors and they're willing to help, then you can really start bringing on your own clients now. A lot of people are sitting there grinding and they don't think about that, but when you're doing your hobbies, if you like disc golf or soccer, like whatever you like to do, go ahead and start working on your book of business. And it doesn't have to be salesy because I'm not really a salesy person either. There's some people that I would say take on like more of the salesy, like you don't want to be one of those. Like you just want to be somebody that it comes natural when you're out doing things. And volunteering, I volunteered for Girls Incorporated here in Panama City when I first moved here. I think I was on the board for 7 years there, and they really need help and they love having people that are professionals on boards like that. So I made friends. I have a client to this day that I met that was a board member with me. She had a small business and we met that way. So hobbies, being in your community, I think all of those things like helps you make partner faster because you are then seen as an entrepreneur and a go-getter, and I think that's important.
That's a great tip. I love that. It's super helpful for young people who knows that hey, you need to go out there and make connection, go out there and do networking, not just stay on the desk and get the job done. That's very
Yes.
important to move up in your career.
Yes, and you
Um,
can incorporate it into fun things. I mean, if you love dogs, like go look for a not-for-profit that, serves dogs and cats and join that, and then you're on a board and you make friends and you can put it on your resume that you were on a board, and you can tell the partners, "Oh, I had a board meeting, to go to," or something like that. Just so that you are not seen as someone that's just sitting in the corner computing.
yep, yep. I
You don't want to
think
be that person, even though that is fun sometimes to just sit there and dig into something. But anyway, that's just a couple things that I did early on in my career that I think helped.
yeah, I really like those stories or those lessons. You share a lot of great tips. I'm just curious if you can share some big aha moments in your career.
I don't know. I don't know if I've had too many big aha moments. It's really more of a just day to day being intentional and, remembering your purpose kind of thing. I'm trying to think. I really can't think of any big aha moments. It's like a lot of small things that add up, just, answering an email promptly, researching something for a partner. It's a lot of little things that I feel like kind of add up to being someone that they value and they feel like they can rely on, and someone who does good quality, like you mentioned. It's a lot of little things, I think, in your career that actually add up to the big things. You know, I mean, I definitely was honored this year when I was named one of the top 200 CPAs by Forbes magazine. I think that's where you found my name, or why you reached out. But I mean, I was totally shocked. I had no idea that that was coming. And so, I mean, that's a big moment. Like, I was proud. Like, my parents called me and said, "We saw you on this thing," And so they're like, "You've been working so hard." So that was awesome. I mean, but it's really just a lot of little things that kind of add up, to the big things.
Yeah, I was very surprised as well. I was holding my newborn at that time, and I
Oh.
was just like check the internet, check on LinkedIn, and I saw that one. I was like, "What? Is that real?" I had to check it twice. It's like, yes, it's my name in there.
I know. It's funny. I met Tony Argies. I don't know if you know him, but he's a big CPA down in Miami. I actually met him yesterday. Well, actually on Wednesday, we had CPA day at the Capitol, and he was up from Miami helping us do lobbying and stuff like that with the FICPA. And he was in that last year, and he started off the article. Like, the beginning of the article was about him. And so this year, they actually chose my interview to be the start of the article. So I went and talked to him. I was like, "I don't even know how this happened, but I need to come talk to you." I said, "It was such an honor because I saw that it started out with Tony Argies last year." And we just started talking, and it turns into a funny story because he actually played baseball in the panhandle of Florida. He said he was one of the only Cubans that played baseball in the panhandle of Florida, which is where I grew up. And my husband played baseball at Chipola, and he played against Chipola. I mean, anyway, this conversation just turned into us like having a connection. And it was just really cool because he was like, "I had no idea I was going to be talking about playing baseball back in the 70s today," but he was such a nice fella, and he, is a legend in the Miami area of all the things that he's done in his career. So it was pretty cool to meet him. And then for some reason, and it's funny because I didn't know about it either. Actually, one of my colleagues texted me and said, "Congratulations." He said, "Congratulations, I'm honored to be on this with you." And I said, "Did we win something?" I didn't even know what he was talking about. And he was like, "Mindy, you need to look at your email or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So it was really cool. And his name is Paul Perry, and he actually went to Troy as well. So we were laughing. We were like, "Two Troy alumni making this special list."
Yeah, I was in maternity leave during that time, and so I did
Okay.
not receive any emails at all. I
Oh,
only saw
wow.
that on because of the post on LinkedIn that the company that my firm had
Okay.
my names on, and I was like, let me check the link. What's going on? And then when I came back to work this week, that's when I saw tons of emails about it. I said, oh, that's how people know in advance. I had no
Yeah.
clues.
Well, congratulations to you because it's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It seems like we share a lot of tips and advice about CPA career. Before we end this interview, I was wondering if you can summarize maybe three main tips for young CPAs or for young professions who like wants to grow, advance a career in this accounting profession.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but I definitely think getting that exam passed before you start your full-time position is a huge win. I mean, I know that it's hard. Like, you want to just spend that time relaxing. You just finished school, but please, it will help you so much in your career if you can get that exam passed. It also showed, we had an associate where he did that. He was one of the few people that had passed the exam when he started, and he really stood out immediately because everybody else was having to study and they were just stressed. And he was like, "Oh, I'm here first day, ready to start. Let's go." And so congrats to him. But I think that's really important. And then the second thing is go ahead and start working on your book of business. I mean, everybody, the profession has to grow, the firm has to grow. There's going to be a lot of clients that are passed on to you, and that's great. But you definitely need to create some of your own book of business. And by doing that, you are showing the firm that you're a go getter, and then they'll be more apt to pass clients on to because when partners are retiring, they get to pick who they want to take on their clients, and it needs to be somebody they trust and somebody that they know is a go getter and does quality work. So work on your book of business. And probably the third thing is just make sure you find something you love. If public accounting is not what you love, then there's tons of other accounting jobs. I mean, seriously, I think when I retire, I'm going to go work for the sheriff's department. I was like, I want to read cold cases or something like that. I was like, I feel like my accounting degree can help. So it's like, I mean, find what you love to do. If you love true crime and stuff like that, then go to the FBI. There's plenty of accounting jobs out there that aren't just public accounting. I am biased towards public accounting because I love what I do. I love helping other small businesses. I love helping people. So, but you got to find what you love. So, just to recap, take the exam before you start work, build your book of business through your hobbies, and make sure you love what you do.
I love it. Make sure you love what you do. That's the best. And yes, CPA exam is very important. And also, build the book of business is very important for you to advance your career as well. Thank you so much, Mindy, for sharing your CPA story today. And also share with us so many tips and advice about this career.
Thank you so much, Rosie, for having me. I'm honored to be here, and congrats on being one of the top 200 CPAs.
Thank you. Congrats to you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.